Hey guys, I don't know how many of you suffer from allergies and have ever had to take either Benadryl or one of the other brands of this, but you may have been suffering from sneezing, itchy, watery eyes, runny nose, itchy throat, or other similar symptoms. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it says this really long, complicated name that we don't need to try to pronounce right now, but then next to it says antihistamine. So what we're going to look at is why an allergy medicine can say antihistamine on it and work the way it does. So if you recall, earlier we talked about the inflammatory response. So allergies have everything to do with kind of a runaway inflammatory response. When you had a slight infection in an area or some tissue damage, whether you sprained an ankle or something, the cells in that area ended up releasing a chemical called histamine. And those histamines, what they did was that was a chemical signal that just cried out help. And so that help signal did a couple different things. A, it called out these white blood cells to come to the area to try to look for possible pathogens. But it also, in order to help those white blood cells come out of our circulatory system, those capillaries, the capillaries got bigger, so notice this blood vessel is wider now than it was over here. So by making them bigger, by dilating them, more blood flow can come along, so increasing the chances of bringing white blood cells around. And it also made the capillaries more leaky, so more fluid actually oozes out of the capillaries into that area. So in a regular inflammatory response, you twist your ankle or you have a little bit of a cut, it gets a little swollen in that area because you have extra fluid leaving your blood vessels and getting trapped in that interstitial space, and it becomes interstitial fluid. So the histamines all kind of called for that to happen. But the idea is to bring more nutrients, more fluid, more white blood cells to that area so we can either fight off the pathogens or help repair any cellular damage. Well, in an allergy, similar kind of thing is going on. You're getting a histamine release, which means you're having an immune response but you're having it to things that are non-pathogenic. So something happens to come into your body that normally wouldn't cause any trouble, but for some reason your body is responding to it as if it were dangerous, and your cells are recognizing that, releasing this histamine and starting an inflammatory response. So, for example, with this Benadryl here, and it says you're sneezing, you have itchy, watery eyes, you have a runny nose and itchy throat. So this is referring to kind of the general either seasonal allergies or if you're allergic to something like pet dander. Here you're having an allergic response in your upper respiratory tract. So the pollen, anything outside that we consider it seasonal, usually it's pollen. If it's something like pet dander, skin cells that are flaking off of your pet or other proteins from their fur or their hair, that's going to get into your nose or get on your eyes, and the cells inside your nose, your eyes, your throat are going to respond to that pollen or pet dander and release histamine. And because you're having that localized inflammatory response in that area, those areas become more leaky with fluid and ends up causing, because it's dribbling down your nose, it causes you to sneeze, it gives you those itchy, watery eyes, etc. So when I take that Benadryl, if I look at, in this picture down here, if this is the area inside my nose and it's gotten all runny and leaky because of all these histamines in that area drawing fluid out. If I take something that's called an antihistamine, that antihistamine will travel in my bloodstream, come out of my bloodstream, and actually bind to those histamine molecules and inactivate them. Now, the trouble is with seasonal allergies, or if you're allergic to pet dander, that sort of thing, those allergens are always around, or they're around a lot more than the amount of antihistamine in that Benadryl. So that's why you have to keep taking it, or take other prescribed allergy medicine, because you're constantly having to neutralize these histamines. But hopefully once you neutralize these, this fluid inside your nose this fluid, extra fluid in here, isn't going to leak through the cells, get in your nose and cause you to sneeze and have the runny nose or the watery eyes sort of thing. So that's an allergy if it's something that's seasonal. If you have, say, a peanut allergy or any other kind of tree nuts or even bee stings, the trouble with these is that they can become very deadly because a lot of times our bodies have a much stronger response to these, and we're not quite sure why so many more people are having peanut and nut allergies like this. But bee stings, people can often be allergic to them. I am. It's gotten to the point where I've gotten stung one time right here, and actually my whole hand and my whole forearm swelled up to my elbow, and it gets worse every time, so I have to be very careful. So here we have a localized inflammatory response. But here, because a bee sting can happen anywhere, or with peanuts and tree nut allergies, I'm swallowing these allergens. These become very problematic because of location. I'm not going to die when a bee stings me on my hand, but what happens if the bee stings me in my throat? Now all of a sudden I'm going to have an allergic response in my throat. My throat can swell, cutting off my airway. So, obviously that can be deadly. Peanuts and other nut allergies, or food allergies in general, because you're swallowing that, your mouth, you'll have that very strong localized inflammatory response in your mouth or in your throat, and then that swelling is going to end up the same down here, is my throat swells shut and I cannot breathe. So that's why location here is bad. The other thing that can happen if people have severe peanut allergies or allergies to bee stings is you can end up, that allergen can spread around the body, and as the allergen travels all over the place, that inflammatory response occurs everywhere. And so you're actually getting a little bit of an inflammatory response in most of your body, and so much fluid is actually leaving your circulatory system all over your body. You won't see swelling everywhere, but because it's not going to be something like the bee sting in my hand where I'm having a very strong response in one spot, I'm having a response everywhere. So much fluid leaves my bloodstream all over my body that my blood pressure drops. Blood pressure drops. I'll slide this up. And that can lead to cardiac arrest. Your heart stops. because your heart needs a minimum amount of fluid in the blood to be able to pump it around. And so to counteract that, people have what's called an EpiPen, and that's filled with adrenaline, or epinephrine. That's why it's an EpiPen. It's filled with epinephrine. And epinephrine is the more scientific name, if you will, for adrenaline. But if somebody's having a severe allergic reaction and they know that this is what's going to happen to them, if this sort of thing is going to happen to them, they'll take their EpiPen, stab it in their leg, and put adrenaline straight in their body. And adrenaline increases heart rates, increases blood pressure, and that will occur, hopefully, as long as it takes either the paramedics to get to you, or you know enough to go and you have your own Benadryl to take in the meantime while you go to the hospital, and then they can give you a stronger, more consistent dose of Benadryl, keep an eye on you, make sure that you're okay. And so all we're doing here with that EpiPen is just increasing your heart rate long enough that you can then take your antihistamine and counteract this body-wide inflammatory response. If you can't get it, your body can go into what's called anaphylactic shock, and that's what's going to lead to your heart stopping.